Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening from. Welcome to the Change Management Simplified podcast, where we will explain and discuss what change management is really about, using real examples alongside principles of change management based on our experiences on projects, transformations, change initiatives, and of course, the home experiences as well. Today's question in front of me is, what is change management? This is a very good question because I get it often both at work as well as at home with my family and friends when I tell them I'm doing change management. However, the best way to look at this phrase or this job title is to break it down into the two words, which is change and management. Change being the vision or the initiative, the change initiative, what needs to be done for the vision to be accomplished. And then secondly, management being the setting of the goals and managing the activities as well as the people that have to carry out those activities to implement the change. That's the simplistic way of looking at the phrase change management. So if we come back to the vision aspect of the word change, which is basically the change initiative, this could be a project based on changing policies. It could be a process change. It could be a system change. It could be an organization structure change, which is one of the most usually the most controversial one, because changes in an organization structure usually results in some people losing their jobs, redundancies. It just changes the setup and the way things are done. But for you to be able to gain the benefits of that vision, you have to understand what is the actual change. What is the purpose for the change? If you don't know what the actual change is, you might have a vision. Don't get me wrong, you would have a vision, but you need to break that vision down into subcomponents for you to be able to work towards that big vision. And this is what usually we get from the executive committees. They would have a vision of, we want to cut costs by, let's say, 10%. And then whoever the sponsors of those change initiatives have to work out how they can achieve that by actually understanding what the actual change needs to be. The other piece, or the second piece that they have to do, is they need to understand, why is the change required? Yes, we want to achieve 10% reduction in cost. But why are we changing ultimately? Are we changing for the sake of changing, or are we changing to gain efficiencies? Efficiencies will result in that reduction, in cost, contribute at least to the reduction in cost to the 10%. Thirdly, who is it impacting? So for example, the actual change needed is implementing a new system, during the first point. If we implement a new system, who is it impacting? Are we moving away from some manual processes of, filling out application forms, to now making everything to go online? You need to understand the components of this change, and why we're doing it. So this is where, and who it would impact. So here, if it's changing from a paper-based application process to an online application process, the number of individuals there that are going to lose their jobs, those who were reviewing the application forms, who were I don't know what else they will be looking at, and with the machines or the system coming in, we'll have automated checks, so that will reduce the number of employees or headcount needed to go through that process. Then thirdly, we need to understand, what is the impact on the stakeholders? The stakeholders, I mean, these are the ones we're changing the systems for, who have been doing the application process manually. They are most likely will be losing their jobs, but also the end users, the public. If we've been submitting the application forms by paper, so therefore we're writing, we're going to the post office, just assuming post office, collecting the application paper, fill it out, take it, send it through. Now you're saying we have to do this online. That means any customer or person using this service has to have either a mobile phone or a computer or laptop to be able to complete this application online. So these are the things that you need to understand as part of the vision. First one is you trying to get an understanding of what is the actual change, why is the change required, the purpose, the objective, who is it impacting, and what is the impact on the stakeholders. That will then enable you to go into the next step, which you have to consider carefully in terms of you getting an understanding further in terms of how the change is going to impact the stakeholders. Sticking with the same example around, moving from a paper-based application system stroke process to an automated stroke online. On this particular stage, you have to consider the fact that both the internal stakeholders, that's the employees who've been processing this by paper, plus the external stakeholders, which is the public who've been submitting these applications by post or, by post in person, both have to have, in addition to the components mentioned, computer, mobile, laptops, there has to be the infrastructure to get access to the internet. There is no point of implementing a change initiative that doesn't have the infrastructure to support it. That is a waste of money. It's money going down the drain. And this is something that most projects sometimes do fail to establish or define and assess from the very beginning. They find this out further later on in the life cycle of the project. Once you have an understanding of how this change is going to impact the stakeholders, you're now in a better position to go into the management aspect of the change management phrase or job role. So when you get into the management phase within this phrase of change management, the focus is all about managing people, managing the project team to be able for them to be able to deliver the requirements or, for example, system configuration in this case, required for the end user service. And also to be able to meet that vision of ensuring that we at least achieve the 10% reduction in cost and therefore reducing our manual labor or headcount. It's important for you to understand the different types of stakeholders that you are dealing with. One, you've got the project team, and during this series we will talk about the project team, how you manage that project team from beginning to the end. But also you have to consider the impacted stakeholders who are highlighted as the end users. In this case, we'll focus on the internal stakeholders, the employees. For you to be able to keep them engaged, focused, but also to get the continued support for the implementation of this new system, you want to understand what's in it for them, because that's all they're caring about. That's what, this is where as human beings or people, we become complex, but also we become selfish. By becoming selfish, will make it that step harder or difficult for anyone in the change management capacity. So as you're managing a change or leading a change, you need to always be able to know or to understand or to anticipate what's in it for the impacted stakeholders. Because when you have the discussions or the debates about the target operating model, or when you're giving updates in town hall meetings, to the company as a whole, you want to be able to read the room, give the right message, drive the right level of discussion, and don't come off as not quite understanding the impact that it has on these various stakeholders. So it's important that you understand what's in it for them, sell the ideas, sell the opportunities to them, encourage them to join where possible, to come, maybe on rotations, be involved in dry runs or comparatives. Give them the opportunity to get upskilled so that they can see that there are opportunities for them to learn something new and therefore continue to stay within the company and add value. And when you continuously, when you continuously manage to keep that ongoing support, it will at least give you a better chance of reducing change resistance towards the back end when you're trying to hand over from the project mode or the project team to the BAU team. And then, of course, that elevates the chances of success and therefore adoption. And that's really, that's what really change management is about. It's different components that I've gone through, but it's really built around you understanding the vision, what it's for, why we're doing it, who does it impact, and how does it impact them. And then once you know that, you define a strategy or activities that you can put in place throughout the project lifecycle to ensure that the end users are continuously engaged, involved, and breaking down barriers of change resistance and any obstacles that might be driven by internal employees. Thank you for listening. If you find this podcast beneficial or interesting, please press follow, like, or subscribe. Lastly, and of course, don't forget to spread the word by sharing. Thank you for listening.